Game on.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining me on today's edition of Glen's Retro Show. Well, as you know, I'm very into video games. That's kind of obvious. Arcade machines, game consoles, RetroPie, buying some, building some. Now, a lot of people today are getting very excited over the Arcade1UP machines, or the machines from At Games, or all-in-one machines like the Capcom new joystick control panel game system. Some people don't mind building them, some people don't mind buying them. But if you're of the building kind, a friend of mine, Wagner, over at Wagner's Tech Talk, is offering something really neat. Now, if you have a 3D printer, he's offering free files basically to print your own gaming control panels. And not only that, he's designed them to not only accept standard joysticks and buttons, but he's also supporting the Glen's Retro Show spinner, trackball, THUNDERjoystick, and other things I'm coming out with. Now, the really cool thing is, these are free. These are free to download, make some changes to it if you want to, and they're modular, so you can kind of make it the way you want to. The colors you want, the styles you want, where you want the controls to be. Now, if you don't have a 3D printer, there are places obviously where you can send them out to have the items printed for you. But if you do have a 3D printer, just download the files, and they're completely free from Wagner over at Wagner's Tech Talk. So without further ado, let's have a look at what he sent me, because I do have a 3D printer, but I'm obviously not very good at it just yet, but I'm working on it. But let's see what he sent me here. And as of right now, he is supporting the Glen's Retro Show spinner and trackball. So let's have a look. Okay, so here's what Wagner sent me over from Wagner's Tech Talk. And again, this is a 3D printed control panel, but it's modular. On this particular side right here, this will support my trackball and my spinner. Then over here we'll have a standard joystick and buttons. But again, you can modify this, you can put multiple modules together. You can print two of these and have dual joysticks, or you can do this, have two trackballs, or you can make it as long and big as you want and keep adding on to it. And if you look at the side here, these are just held together right now by screws loosely right now, just how it was sent. These are designed for putting a RetroPie in here, and he even has a port here so you can have an external USB port back here. And if you look on the back of the units, you can see they're kind of made the same. There are locations back here to bring out an external video cable if you needed to do so. But here's where you'd put your Raspberry Pi unit, usually probably a 3 or 2, or now you can put a 4 in actually. So these are basically the same on both sides. But again, you can modify these to where you don't print this and make it solid. If you're putting something else inside, if you want to use it maybe you want to put it up to your regular PC, and you just want to have a USB cable coming out of here to go into your computer running MAME. You can do that as well on this right here. Now the armrest right here came out because they're not held down with anything right now. I just kind of sat them in there real loose. But on this side right here, you can see there is a plate. But you can take this plate off and continue along and make this as long and big as you want. And on the bottom side here, you can see we had two different ones here as well. Here could be like your player 1 start, player 2 start. This one doesn't need those buttons, so there's nothing on this one. So what's really cool about this, again, is that you can 3D print these yourself. You can kind of make it. You can put these additional handles on here to rest your hands on. That's what these are basically right here, just like little hand rests, if you want to use them or not. But even on the inside, we'll open this thing up here, and I'll show you exactly what he did inside here to make it as easy as possible to basically make your own arcade joystick or spinner device. If you didn't want to have a big arcade machine in the house and you want something a little more portable, or even better, just a project to do on your own. If you have a 3D printer or a friend has one, you can print this thing up and basically do it on the cheap. I mean, your most expensive would be PLA for the actual, make of the device out of the plastic, then a Raspberry Pi and your controls. So it's very, very inexpensive. I'll put a link down below to Wagner's Tech Talk's main page and his page to go talk about his system right here. This is really, really cool. This OpenCade is what he calls it. And he even has great documentation on his site as well on here to go pretty much step by step on how to set this whole thing up, the different parts you're going to need. He really does a fantastic job. Wagner is actually really, really cool for not only doing this for the community, making it something that's not only free, but open source. You can kind of change it, make it the way that you want. Okay, so I'm not going to do a complete build video on this. Wagner over at Wagner's Tech Talk already has a video of that, and I'll link it down below. He goes through the whole process of getting the files, printing this, assembling them, the different ways you can assemble it. He even goes into how to set up RetroPie for my trackball and spinner. Got a lot of people have questions about that, and Wagner's already has that in his video. So I'm not going to go that in depth with this. What I am going to do is just talk about my experience with what he sent me here. And again, if you have a 3D printer, it's something you can tackle. I do have a 3D printer. I have an iMega i3, but I'm not very good at my 3D printer just yet, so I didn't want to tackle this. So he offered to send me this complete so I can do a little review of it here. So let's just open this little guys up here and show you. Again, this particular plate here was designed for my trackball and my spinner. You can see all the pilot holes are where they should be already, and you have the good mounting points on here already. And then on the inside, on this particular half, you can see he's got the interface board here for the 12-in-1. We'll mount right here. And I'm going to take off this part here. This is for a joystick, and of course the action buttons and player 1, player 2 start. And that's also on this side. And you can see right here he's actually joined them already. But on this side again is the interface board. And technically you can put a Raspberry Pi here. It's already got the spot for it. But on this side here, again, we have an encoder spot. And this would be for like the joystick for that. And he created here a USB here so you can plug in external keyboard or other USB peripherals to your system. And the Raspberry Pi can be mounted right here. And again, on the back, you can see we've got the spots here for the Raspberry Pi's back plate on both sides. Now, if you wanted to, you could just mount in your controls in here, and he has a spot right here to run a cable out like so. See on this side right here. Run a cable out like this in case you just want to use it for joysticks and run a USB to your PC for the actual emulation on it. And the good thing about this, the way that this mounts, there's a through hole right here already, and you can mount multiple of these across. So let's say you wanted to put in a joystick here and buttons, my trackball and spinner, and then over here add another printed module for another joystick for say Crazy Climber or Robotron, or just have multiple people. You can do 4 of these and do 4-player games. The point is that it's modular, and these plastic devices are pretty strong as well. They can take a good tossing around, and that's it. So I'm going to put mine together here, and we'll see how that looks at that point. But again, I would highly recommend going over to Wagner's page over at Wagner's Tech Talk. The link will be down below to kind of see how well he's done this and how easy it is to do. He even has a really good instruction manual he put together on how to set this whole thing up. So he really does a fantastic job. But again, this is a no-charge item. It's free to download, free to make changes to. It's just a good little project if you don't want to spend the money on a bigger machine. Of course, there will be an expense here for the PLA, but it's still going to be less than buying a full machine. But of course, then you still have to add your controls. So it's really up to you. This is just a fun project if you want to tackle it, and I think it's pretty neat. And at the end of the video, I'll show you something else he's working on, which I think is really even neater than this. Well, okay, not neater than this, but as neat as this. But we'll get to that after I get this assembled. Okay, I have this thing open here, and just wanted to talk about a couple things real quick. This is, again, a fantastic thing he's doing here, especially being 3D printed. Everything is very, very solid, including these shells, which right now are parks that are held together with screws. Just a couple observations and things I'd like to maybe see him improve. You can see he does have a cable here, like you can put a cable through here for if you want to use it just as a joystick and have it go into your computer. But since I do have a Raspberry Pi in here, this is actually a Raspberry Pi 3 Plus. You can see the micro SD card slot is right down here, and it's very hard to get to. So a suggestion I would make is if this could be slid over to where it's all the way on the corner so you can get to the SD card, or move it over this way a little bit so you can throw in a micro SD card extension cable. They're very cheap on eBay, about $1 or $2 a piece. And then you can run the SD card anywhere you want. Otherwise, you have to take off 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 screws every time you need to get to the SD card. It's not a big deal. I did talk to him about it. He says it's a pretty good idea and he can move it over. But other than that, that's really it. I mean, everything is very, very well secured in here. There's plenty of room in here on both sides. Even in here, you can see the cables going through. There's tons of room in here. You can see there's a pass-through there. The pass-through here goes to an external USB. So you can plug in a USB keyboard or an external other, I guess, gamepad if you wanted to do that. But it's very, very well done. So I'm going to close this thing up right now. I just wanted to mention that it would be, since there's so much room in there, just a little bit better if you could either move the Pi over to the right, so it's on the edge, so you can simply get the SD card directly from over here, or move it over so you can put in a flex cable with an SD card slot on it, so you can put the cable anywhere that you like. That's really it. Other than that, this thing's very well built. I'm going to close it back up and try it out. So after you go to print your little parts, you get your little pieces all set to go. They come out pretty well. It takes time, of course. 3D printers take time to print. But when you're done and you get it all assembled, you'll end up with something like this. So this is actually pretty neat. Again, you can always buy pre-made joysticks, but with something like this, you can really customize what you want. Being that it's free STL files that Wagner has at Wagner's Tech Talk, you can modify these to make it the way you want. And the modular, you can keep adding more and more of these modules on there. So you can see right here we have an 8-way joystick, buttons, my spinner, and trackball. And he's going to have some other neat things for this spinner coming soon. So, I mean, this is actually pretty neat. I mean, you of course can buy a pre-made, joystick. The new Capcom one comes to mind that they're coming out with that has certain, Capcom games on there. But what's neat about this is a project you can do. If you have a 3D printer or a friend who does, it's a neat little project to print these up, put everything in there, and again, you can make it any way that you like. I'm going to play this a little bit right now myself. But what's really neat about this also, he's got the hand rests part right here so you can rest your hands on as you're playing the system here. It's actually pretty neat. So let's take a closer look at how this thing turned out and printed. Okay, here we can see the completed unit, and we're going to fire this little bad boy right up. Okay, so here's the unit. Again, it's all 3D printed. You see we got armrests on here. There are 2 buttons down here. I'm going to use one for the hotkey and probably one to access tab inside MAME, I guess, or something like that. We have my trackball here set up for a green color when I turn this on. My spinner is installed here. 8-way joystick and a bunch of buttons on here. We'll have our coin, we'll have our start, and just our A, B, X, Y, so forth, blah, 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 buttons. That's it. So I'm going to turn this thing on right here. It's running a Raspberry Pi 3B+. So I'll plug this little guy in here. And just wait for this little guy to boot up. Now what's good about this too is it is 3D printed. You could cover this up with some vinyl if you wanted to do that. He had sent me some things, I haven't put them on here yet. But you could put an overlay on this if you wanted to. And with the USB on the side, I did connect a USB keyboard in case I needed it for some reason. And look, fits under there really nice too. Okay, so we have a standard Raspberry Pi build here. I'm going to lower this sound down just a little bit. And of course our joystick will work just like any joystick would. And of course you can make a selection on one of these here. and pick a game. We're gonna go back. Probably, I always like starting off with Donkey Kong. I don't know why. I'm not very good at Donkey Kong, but I always like starting off with Donkey Kong. So let's go over to Arcade. Just gotta find it where it is on here. This is only a 16 gigabyte image. There's so many different things in here. Here we go, there's MAME. Right in the head. Well, that's better. Oh, that is so bad. Whoa! Oh. Oh my goodness. I'll make it.
Prepare for Operation Starblade. Calling Starfighter Geosword. Calling Geosword. Come in, Geosword. The enemy task force mechanized planet Red Eye just reached the Federation of Planets and is approaching our mother planet. Our strategy is to neutralize Red Eye and defeat the menace to our mother planet. Aim at the power source generator of Red Eye. All energy converges on the Power Stone, which is inside of Octopus. Good luck, Geosword. Over. Located enemy flagship commander. This is Team Leader. This is Team Leader. Towards Red Eye. Pursue and engage Red Eye. Geosword warp point is located. Coordinates set at W726.
So what are my final thoughts of the OpenCade project here from Wagner's Tech Talk? I think it's really neat, especially if you own a 3D printer or who has a friend who has one who wouldn't mind printing one up for you. It's really a cool design, one you can make changes to. It's modular. The only shortcomings I saw personally was really where the Raspberry Pi was sitting to get to the SD card, but that's easily fixable. Again, it's 3D printable. You can make a modification and move it around. Other than that, I think it's pretty cool, and huge shout outs to Wagner, Wagner's Tech Talk, for contacting me and sending me this, and not only making a module for my parts here, but also making a steering wheel attachment that should be out soon for my spinner. That'll make games like Outrun even better. So I want to thank you all for watching Glen's Retro Show today, and please take a moment to take a look at Wagner's Tech Talk. He does have this OpenCade project, but he has a lot of other interesting things on his page, and I think you guys would find it pretty enjoyable. So again, thanks for watching, everyone, and remember, no matter how you do it, game on.
Glen at the Tiny Arcade fan page. Remember, don't admire people too much. They'll disappoint you.
Sit, Blue Blue, sit. Good dog.